Hello and welcome to another edition of the GSMC College Football Podcast, presented to you by the GSMC Network. Today is Thursday, April 17th. Got a good show for you today. I'm going to talk a little bit about some other options that are in the transfer portal currently, some guys that I think could be really big pickups for some Power 4 programs. Also going to talk a little bit about Ohio State and Penn State, going to preview their seasons today, kind of do something similar to what I've been doing where position by position breakdown, kind of looking at their schedule, seeing how their season may play out. Also going to touch a little bit about 2025 NFL draft prospects that I think could really have potential to make early impacts at the NFL level this upcoming season as rookies, as well as we're going to talk about the NCAA changing the timeout rule regarding player injuries and kind of guys faking that. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. But first, I'd like to remind everyone that we love hearing from you during the show. We want to make it as interactive, as exciting as possible, whether it's a quick comment, thoughtful question, or any kind of insight, any opinion that you have that you just want to share, want to get out, you can go ahead, comment. And if you want to make sure that your question, comment gets on air for sure, why not use Super Chat? So just go to the bottom of the chat box, click the $sign, send in your Super Chat there. This guarantees that it gets on the air. It's also just a fantastic way to support our channel, support what we're doing here at GSMC. We couldn't do what we do without your support, and we're so grateful to have you here as a part of our GSMC community. So now we're going to talk a little bit about some of the other guys that are in the transfer portal currently, and kind of what they bring to the table, where they could potentially go. The first guy I kind of want to look at is Tanner Kazeel. This was a tight end originally from Ball State. He actually transferred in the December portal to Wisconsin, but decided while he was there over spring ball this year that he did not want to stay at Wisconsin, was going to re-enter the portal. This is going to be a big tight end pickup for whoever gets him. Massive target. He's 6'7", about 235, so huge frame for a tight end. And he was really productive last year at Ball State. Caught 94 passes, had 830 receiving yards. So this is a guy that had a really strong year. Was second team All-MAC, but you have to remember Harold Fannin Jr. from Bowling Green. He was first team All-MAC, led the country basically in receiving yards. That was a guy that had a phenomenal season. So not a bad place to be in second place behind Harold Fannin. Still a really, really strong season as a tight end, especially. Led all tight ends in 2024 with 22 contested catches as well. Just kind of highlighting, showcasing that frame, the ability to go up and get the ball. Really has a well-rounded skill set. Kind of helps his overall play, but this is a guy that's going to be a red zone threat that you want to go up and catch the ball over cornerbacks, over smaller safeties. He uses his body really, really well. He's kind of able to box out and shield against those smaller defenders in those jump ball scenarios. And that's clear with the 22 contested catches last season, that this is a guy that really excels at that, at going up and getting the ball. He has really strong leaping ability, and he's also able to high point the ball really well, where he can just go up, see the top part of that ball, and he's able to get that. It's going to make him a red zone nightmare for anybody who gets him. Also a strong blocker, which is obviously something you want from the tight end position. This is a guy, he's got strong hand placement, keeps him inside, doesn't get a lot of holding calls, and also just has the power to kind of finish blocks at that position and being an inline tight end. Another guy I'm kind of looking at is Joe Cotton. Now, Joe Cotton, he's an FCS level guy, was at South Dakota the past few years, but 6'7", 315, big frame. He uses it really well. He was a 2-year starter at left tackle for South Dakota. Last year was second team All Missouri Valley Conference. So did it at South Dakota. They went to the semifinals of the SCS playoffs this season. Those Dakota teams are normally really strong programs. There's a lot of guys that are able to come from those programs and go to a Power 4 program and play right away, contribute right away. He was a top 10 returning tackle in the FCS level according to Pro Football Focus, according to their grades from this past season. He only gave up 1 sack last year, and he's a true blindside protector. It's a guy. He's got great length for the position. He's kind of underrated as a mover, pretty agile, especially for his size. He's really got a great first step. He gets off the ball really quickly, and he kind of is able to place his hands well to control defenders, control pass rushers, and kind of force them where he wants them to go. He's also a really active run blocker, loves getting up to the second level, really effective at the second level. He's kind of deceptive in his movement, faster than people might think. He's able to get to that second level really well. So Joe Cotton is another guy that could be a starting left tackle at a Power 4 program at any time. We'll have a lot of interest in the portal this season. Another guy I'm looking at on defense is TJ Bush. Now, TJ Bush was at Liberty, started as a true freshman in 2023, was a freshman All-American. Even better, last season in 2024, had 9.5 tackles for loss, 5.5 sacks, was second team All-Conference USA. So this is a kid that had a strong first season, got even better last year. Second most pressures in Conference USA over the past 2 seasons. And this is a kid that is a mentality guy. This is a guy that's super hard worker, known for his work ethic, guy that's going to play until the whistle, really, really strong in pursuit, doesn't give up on a play until it's over officially. Just a high motor overall. He will continue to keep working, keep going. Especially, this is a guy that might get some coverage sacks where he's just kind of still going at that quarterback, still going at that blocker, trying to get there and finish the play. But also just really strong intangibles to go with that high motor. It gives him a high floor as a player to where you know what you're going to get, at least from an effort level from this guy, from TJ Bush. But he's also kind of just chaotic in his pass rush. That's the best word I can use to describe it. He doesn't have a strong plan, but just chaotic. Able to kind of use his frame. He's not super athletic, not a strong guy that has a lot of bend, or his redirection kind of lacks a little bit, and just kind of being able to switch where he's going, what lane he's pursuing. That's not his strong suit, but he does have good awareness. He comes into a play with a plan of attack, but just kind of chaotic in how he gets to that plan, how he executes it. He is not the most smooth athlete to watch, but fun to watch. Will be a guy that will be at the Power 4 level next season. Another guy I'm looking at, running back Josh McCray from Illinois. He was their leading rusher this past season. Only 600 rushing yards, which I was a little surprised by, but was the MVP of the Citrus Bowl also this past year. Had a really strong performance in that bowl game. This was a guy that was the first big-time recruit for Brett Bielema at Illinois, and had 600 rushing yards. Bigger number, he had 10 touchdowns. This is a really big running back, though. He's 6'1", 235. This is going to be a guy that probably will get goal line carries, is going to have more of a role, most likely, wherever he goes next. But he was expected to kind of be the main guy at running back for Illinois this season. So I'm not sure if that's more of he didn't love what he was getting at Illinois from an NIL perspective, or just wanted a different kind of spotlight. But he's in the portal. This is a big back, like I said, bruising. He's going to use his body to just run you over. He wants to go downhill as fast as he can. But he also did have 13 catches last year, which isn't a whole lot. Had one catch, a receiving touchdown, but he also had a highlight catch against, I believe it was Nebraska, but really great catch there. Kind of showcased that he does have a little more hands, a little more skills than maybe people are giving him credit for. So it's going to be another guy to look at as a backfield option for teams that are looking for an upgrade or maybe just a change of pace kind of back. Josh McCray is going to be a guy that could be a really strong option there. The last guy I'm looking at here in this kind of segment is Elo Madozi. He was an Army guy, West Point, defensive end, about 6'3", 245, so not the biggest defensive end, more of a quickness, speed kind of edge, but third team all AAC last season, had 28 quarterback pressures on the year, finished with 34 tackles, had 8 tackles for loss, also had 6.5 sacks. So, and the other stat that I always love to see is he blocked 2 field goals. I love special teams stats. I think that kind of shows that you're willing to do anything to win, especially when he was a guy that was a starter for Army, still rotated in on that, and was able to block 2 field goals. I think that's really impressive and kind of is a bigger stat than people give it credit for. This is a guy that probably has the highest ceiling of any defender in the portal right now. Obviously, he had a good year last year, but is a guy that can even build on it and improve even more. He, coming out of high school, he had an elite 23-foot long jump, which is a crazy number, really strong, but he kind of fell under the radar just because of his size. He is well built, but has room to add to his frame, especially only being 245 pounds, can add another 10, 15 pounds at least and be fine there. But he's a guy that shows really good initial quickness, good burst coming off of the line of scrimmage, super explosive, and also just has really heavy hands. So he pairs that initial quickness just with his hands coming in, and they're really strong. Uses them as kind of power rush moves and is able to shed through blockers with those hands. Also, just a reliable open field tackler. This is a guy that will be able to play well in run defense as well as pass defense. And he can even kind of cover in a pinch. I wouldn't primarily put him as a coverage linebacker. I think he's much more of an edge rusher. But if you needed to, I think in a pinch, Madozier could be a guy that could cover for you and do it on a decent basis at that next level. But he's a guy that I think has a really high ceiling and could be even better depending on where he ends up at next season. Right now, we are going to take our first break of the show, and when we come back, we're going to go and talk a little Big Ten action, talk about the Ohio State Buckeyes, preview their season for this upcoming year, but we'll be back shortly on the GSMC College Football Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits, some losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip, you choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Welcome back to the GSMC College Football Podcast, presented to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. Just talked a little bit about some guys that are in the portal right now that I think could be really solid options for teams looking for upgrades. Gonna get into a little bit of Ohio State football, but before we do that, I just want to remind everyone that we love hearing from you during the show. If you have a comment, a question, just a hot take, anything that you want to share, we'd love to hear it. And if, you can go to Super Chat, you can use that to put your comment or question in, make sure it gets seen on air. To do that, just click the $sign at the bottom of the chat box to send in your Super Chat there. We love hearing from you. It's also just a great way to support our show. We couldn't do what we do at GSMC without your support, and we appreciate you being a part of our community here so much. So we're going to talk a little bit about Ohio State now. Going to kind of go position by position breakdown, and then we're going to look at some of the games that are on their schedule for this upcoming season. So obviously quarterback is going to be the big point of emphasis here for Ohio State this season. Will lose Will Howard this season after he was in for 1 year after transferring in from Kansas State. It's going to be a competition here between Julian Sayin, Lincoln Keenholz. Tavian St. Clair is also in the room, but he's a true freshman. He's probably going to be developing more so than anything. And that's kind of what Ryan Day has said throughout the past few weeks, throughout the past month or so, that St. Clair is not in this competition. So it's going to be Julian Sayin or Lincoln Keenholz. Julian Sayin, I think, is probably the leader to start as of right now. Has a higher pedigree, was a 5-star guy, originally was a Bama recruit, was at Alabama for a couple weeks before Saban retired and then transferred to Ohio State. So he was at Ohio State for all of the 2024 season. He's been in the system now, so it's not like he just transferred in this year. He's been at Ohio State. And he had a really decent performance in the spring game, probably a better performance than Keenholz did. 17 of 24 during the spring game, had a passing touchdown, looked really smooth just in general, had led 3 consecutive scoring drives for the Ohio State offense, looked in command of the offense. And then Keenholz had a decent spring game. He did take the first snaps under center in the spring game. It was reported that he also had outperformed Julian Sayin in a scrimmage last week, but in the spring game this past weekend, he did not look as sharp as Julian Sayin did. Needed a little more adjustment. Just he was a South Dakota kid coming in from South Dakota, where the level of competition just isn't as high as some of the other high school states in terms of football. But he does have more experience. Was thrown in as a freshman into the Cotton Bowl against Missouri, kind of thrown to the wolves there. Didn't play great in that game, but that was really understandable. No one really blamed him for that because he was not expected to play whatsoever, pretty much. But this is a kid that has grown from that experience. A little more shifty in terms of how he kind of plays. Likes to get on the move, likes to play outside of structure. That's really his kind of thing. This is going to be an interesting battle. We probably won't know who wins until the season almost basically starts. I don't think they'll take the competition into the season, into the start of the fall. But I could be wrong. I don't know. Running back wise, they are going to lose Travion Henderson, Quinshon Judkins, probably the best backfield in the country, arguably one of them. Those are going to be 2 big losses for them. Sophomore James Peoples, he's probably going to be the main guy to step up here and take control. CJ Donaldson should be right behind him. Those are probably going to be the main two guys. This is really going to be a backfield by committee approach. It's kind of what Ohio State has been leaning more towards over the past 5 or 6 years, and I think they're going to continue that trend. I'm also watching out for Bo Jackson, freshman running back. Yes, his name is Bo Jackson, but he's a kid that's coming in from Cleveland High School. So Ohio kid, 4-star recruit, really impressive high school career at VASJ, and he's kind of had flashes during the spring where they've been moments that have made him pop. I think Bo Jackson could be a guy that could potentially get carries early on in his career in Columbus. Pass catching wise, receivers and tight ends, this is a really, really strong group for Ohio State. And wide receiver, they do lose Mika Ibuka, but you have Jeremiah Smith returning, probably the best wide receiver in the country. You also have Carnell Tate returning as a starter. Brandon Innes is probably going to take over that slot position. Former 5-star guy, really highly regarded. Probably going to take over for Ibuka, but that's still kind of up in the air. Mylan Graham, another 5-star, is kind of also battling for that spot right now. They're going to be in contention. Mylan Graham had a stronger spring game, had 4 catches at 101 yards, had a 51-yard touchdown off of a slant, which that's always good to see, especially if it's going to be a guy working out of the slot. You want to see those short intermediate routes really hit, then be able to pop on those. Mylan Graham did that in the spring game. It remains to be seen if he's going to carry that into the season or if Brandon Innes takes control there. That doesn't really matter. I think Ohio State can't go wrong with either guy. They've just been producing wide receivers at a crazy rate right now. And then tight end wise, they brought in probably the best tight end in the portal in December in Max Clare from Purdue. Had a really strong season last year for the Boilermakers, but he will be the main guy at tight end for the Ohio State Buckeyes. Offensive line, it's going to be kind of interesting how they line up. Carson Hinsman will return, and Tegra Chishbola will also return at center and at right guard, so those two spots are solidified. Ethan Onainwa, wow, I really butchered that, however it's actually pronounced. I'm sorry, Ethan. That was a really bad one. But, so I'm just going to say Ethan for right now. Ethan could be the left tackle coming in. He transferred in for Bryce. Big-time pickup for them. Could be the left tackle there. Configuration kind of depends on what Ohio State does with Austin Sarivold. He played right tackle, also can play left tackle, but most likely will have a starting position. Just kind of depends on where he's actually going to line up for the Buckeyes. Defensive line, this is going to be a big question mark for Ohio State. Losing Jack Sawyer, losing JT Tuimoloau, this is going to be a group that really needs reinforcements. There's not a whole lot there right now. Caden Curry is expected to take over one of the spots at defensive end. Also going to lose Tyleik Williams, who I think Tyleik Williams was really, really impactful for Ohio State. People kind of don't realize how much he did for that defense, how much Tyleik Williams made them go and made them the elite unit that they were. So replacing him at D-tackle is also going to be a big concern. I think a spot here, I talked about Bo Atkinson from North Carolina yesterday. I think Ohio State is really going to try and go after him. He's already lined up a visit for Ohio State and for Georgia. But I think Ohio State is really going to try to go at Bo Atkinson. This is a group that really needs reinforcements right now. Doesn't have a whole lot of experience or production returning. There are a couple guys that could step up and elevate into those roles, but this is going to be a big question mark and big point of emphasis for Ohio State. I think a lot of their success will ride on the defensive line, how much they can get pressure and how much they can stop the ball. The running attack of opposing offenses. Linebacker, though, this is a position that is set in stone pretty much. Sonny Styles is returning as a starter, one of 3 returning starters on defense last year. Guy that transitioned from safety to linebacker, really, really athletic as a linebacker, having that pedigree experience as a safety. This is a guy that's a good coverage linebacker, really strong at the point of attack, has gotten better at the line of scrimmage, gotten more physical over the past year or so. Sonny Styles, I think, is going to have a really, really strong year for the Buckeyes. And then Arvell Reese is probably going to take over that other starting linebacker position. Was the 3rd linebacker for Ohio State last season, coming off the bench. He should kind of elevate into that starting role. And then I think it looks like sophomore Peyton Pierce is going to kind of take over that 3rd linebacker spot, which Arvell Reese had occupied last season. So linebacker, though, it looks like they're going to be pretty set right now for Ohio State. A couple guys, young guys that are on the bench there that maybe could get time, but I kind of doubt it. I think this is going to be a position where Sonny Styles, Arvell Reese play 80% of the time at least if they are able to. Secondary looks pretty strong. Obviously, they're returning Caleb Downs, All-American, transfer from Alabama, who had a really, really great first year in Columbus. Really solidified that back half of the secondary. Davison Igbinison is also going to be returning at cornerback. Has been a starter there since he transferred in from Ole Miss. I saw him play as a true freshman at Ole Miss. Kid has really, really grown in his game overall. Jermaine Matthews is probably going to have the other outside corner position locked up. Kind of injured right now, but he should be the guy at that spot. Slot is going to be the really big battle, I guess, here. Lorenzo Styles Jr., who's Sonny's brother, actually, he should start in the slot. He's gotten the most amount of reps, first-team reps at the slot. But you could also see a configuration where they have Jermaine Matthews bump inside to the slot, bring in either Devin Sanchez or Aaron Scott Jr. to play that second outside corner position. Both of those guys were 5-star recruits. Devin Sanchez was like a top 5 player in the class in the country. So guys that obviously have the pedigree, have the talent to come in and play right away. That's going to be the one thing to kind of look at there, as well as the other starting safety position. It looks like it'll probably be Malik Hartford, but again, that one is kind of up in the air. Schedule-wise for Ohio State, they open the season with a doozy. You got Texas at home on August 30th. I actually think that's a Friday night, which is kind of interesting. Gonna have a rematch of that matchup, and I think that's gonna be a really great game to watch. Not really sure if Ohio State pulls it out or not. I think honestly Texas could win that game, just having more experience returning. Arch, even though he is a first-year starter, does have a little more playing time, a little more experience than either of the Ohio State quarterbacks. And week 1, that's going to be a really daunting challenge for whoever starts under center for Ohio State. I think even though they're at home, having Texas coming in week 1, Ohio State has had some really strong week 1 matchups the past few years. Obviously had Notre Dame to start the season the past couple years. So they're not used to playing a good team week 1, but I think Texas is going to be a really big matchup for them. Another game I'm looking at, Illinois is a team that I think they're going to be actually pretty decent this season. I know their reputation isn't as strong in terms of football, but has a returning quarterback in Luke Altmaier, has really strong returners across the board. They won 9 games last year, and Ohio State has to go play at Illinois. Ohio State traditionally kind of has 1 or 2 games on the schedule where it's an away game and it seems like it should be a win, and they kind of sleepwalk through it and either lose or come really, really close to losing. Illinois, I think, could be a game that's one of those types of games for Ohio State. They do have Penn State at home this year. I think that's going to be big. Penn State honestly might be more talented overall as a roster this season, just with some of their returners. I'm going to talk about them in my next segment, but that's going to be a big matchup to start November. It's November 1st, but having Penn State at home, I think is going to be big. Obviously, they've kind of owned Penn State in the past 5 to 10 years. Last year's game was pretty close. It seems like Penn State always gets right there, right up to the end, and then kind of fumbles the game away. But this is going to be another big-time matchup. And then they have to go on the road and play Michigan to end the season. And until Ohio State beats Michigan again, I think this is going to be a game that I'm always going to kind of watch and look out for. Ohio State really had no business losing to Michigan last season, or the season before that, but there are a couple games this streak right now that Michigan's on. Until Ohio State proves that they can beat them, I think this is going to be a game that you're going to have to watch, going to have to look out for, and obviously just a rivalry. It is the game, so always going to have to look out for that matchup there. I think Ohio State, until they beat Michigan again, that's going to be a game that you have question marks around. So we're going to take our second break of the show right now. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about Penn State, then stick in the Big Ten, and kind of preview their season, do something similar. So stick around, and we'll be back shortly on the GSMC College Football Podcast.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
Welcome back to the GSMC College Football Podcast. Just talked a little bit about Ohio State. We are going to go to one of their quote-unquote rivals and talk about their season. We're going to talk about the Penn State Nittany Lions. So, obviously, they are set at quarterback. Had a strong 2024 season. Made it to the college football playoff semifinal. Was really, really close to going to the national championship. Kind of lost it in the last 2 or 3 minutes of that game. But this is a team that's returning a lot of talent, is going to be a contender again in 2025. So obviously they are set at the quarterback position right now. Drew Aller returning for his third year as the starting quarterback for Penn State. Unquestioned starter. And he had a really good year in 2024 overall. He improved across the board. Was stronger in his decision making, and just he's always been a guy that looks a little timid at times, and kind of showcased his assertiveness this season. Grew up as a leader. That's a big breaking news. Steve Angeli, Notre Dame quarterback, is in the transfer portal officially. So I'm probably going to cover that tomorrow, but that's a big one. So Drew Aller, though, had a strong 2024 season. Kind of left a bad taste in everyone's mouth after that semifinal where he had that interception against Notre Dame right at the end of the game. Kind of sealed Penn State's fate, sealed the fate of their season. Left a bad, sour taste in a lot of people's mouths, but across the board had a really good year last year, and I think that moment's kind of just sticking in people's minds right now. Ethan Grunkmeyer should be the main backup for them. He occupied that role throughout the college football playoff, where after Bo Pribula transferred into Missouri after he entered the portal, Grunkmeyer took over that role as the backup quarterback, and I think he will continue that role into this season. Running back is going to be another really big strength for Penn State. Both Nick Singleton and Katron Allen decided to return for another season at Penn State. Both of those guys were huge returns. I kind of expected at least one of them to enter the draft, so the fact that they both came back to Happy Valley, I think, is really good for Penn State. It's probably the best backfield in the country, in my opinion, at least best running back room. Both of these guys rushed for over 1,000 yards last season. Nick Singleton also had like 500 receiving yards last year. Just the dual threat ability, the thunder and lightning kind of aspect. Katron Allen, really powerful runner. Nick Singleton, a little bit of more of a finesse kind of guy. I love that backfield, and they're going to continue to carry Penn State this season. Cam Wallace, Corey Smith, they'll probably be the main backups to those two guys, but this is the Nick Singleton, Katron Allen show in Happy Valley. I think even more so than last season, we're really going to see Penn State lean on those guys, especially with the pass catchers. So, obviously, they're losing tight end Tyler Warren, who was really probably 60% of their offense, if not more, last season. 1,600 receiving yards. Just a crazy season overall as a tight end. They lined him up everywhere across the line of scrimmage. He was at wideout. He played tight end. He lined up at running back. He lined up at quarterback. So, losing Tyler Warren, that's going to be a big miss for Penn State. Big hole to fill. And most of their receivers are gone too. Really, Liam Clifford only returns. Not that the wide receiver room was the strongest of any position for Penn State, but they're losing Harrison Wallace, losing a couple other guys. Julian Fleming is out of eligibility now. Only Liam Clifford's returning. So transfers are expected to play a big role here. Devontae Ross, Kyron Hudson, those are the two main guys that are expected to kind of take over as Penn State's receivers, as their starting role receivers, expected to play major roles. Hudson for USC, he had like 500 receiving yards last season, had a solid year, but not, a world beater by any means. Devontae Ross, though, he was Troy's leading receiver, had 76 catches, over 1,000 yards, 11 touchdowns, so really productive season in the Sun Belt. The big thing there is going to be, will the jump up in competition affect him at all? Can he do it in the Big Ten? That's going to be the big question mark there with Devontae Ross. But those two guys are really expected to play major roles for Penn State, for the receiver room this season. Tysier Denmark and Caden Saunders, those are also two guys that could potentially get playing time. Both of them kind of dealt with injuries in the past, kind of played at certain times, but definitely going to be in the mixture there for wide receiver. Tight ends, they do return Khalil Dinkins, who was their number 2 tight end last season. Played a lot, actually, just in certain packages. He's going to return. He's going to take over as the starter. Kind of known more for his pass blocking ability than his actual catching ability. That's what Khalil Dinkins, that's kind of his calling card. But he is a really strong pass catcher as well. Had a few touchdowns on the season. Luke Reynolds, he should also play a lot. He was the number 1 tight end prospect in his class. Played a decent chunk last season, but should play even more this season for the Nittany Lions. I think freshman Andrew Olesh, that's going to be another name to kind of watch out for. He was a number 47 overall player in the class, number 3 tight end nationwide, but another guy with a strong recruiting pedigree background. Could be a guy that gets playing time, especially just with the hole that Tyler Warren's leaving. Their O-line, though, that's really a strength for them. pretty much their entire starting offensive line from this past season is returning. Drew Shelton, Nick Dawkins, Vega Ioane, Anthony Doku, Nolan Rucci, they all started games last season, started the vast majority, or at least some of the games. They all played a bunch. Good experience. This is going to be a unit that's really going to be strong, really going to be one of the benchmarks of Penn State's team this season. I think they're going to be leaned on to create holes in the run game and just keep Drew Aller upright overall. They also got a ton of depth. I think this is probably top to bottom the strongest unit on Penn State's roster this season. They should be okay at O-line. Just depends on injuries, production, kind of how they want to set up who's playing where, but most of their starters from last year are returning. There's continuity there. Should be a really strong unit for them. At D-line, obviously the headliner, they're losing Abdul Carter, projected top 3 pick, had a really strong season last year, but Danny Dennis-Sutton is still around. He's expected to be the anchor of that defensive line. So Dennis Sutton in 2024 still had 8.5 sacks, 13 tackles for loss, and he played his best actually during that college football run. I think 4.5 of those 8.5 sacks came from the college football playoff games. I want to say around 7 of his tackles for loss also came in the college football playoff games. So this was a guy that stepped up when the lights were brightest, when the moment was the biggest it could be. This was a guy that really stepped up his game, and he's going to be expected to be the centerpiece of that Penn State pass rush this season. Zariah Fisher, I think that's another guy that could factor in if he's healthy. He missed almost all of 2022, played in 2023 a good chunk, and then missed all of this past season. So he could be a name, and he's been a solid contributor for Penn State when he's been healthy, but obviously has not been super healthy in the past 2 or 3 seasons. Could be a name that factors in. I'm also looking at guys like Max Granville, Jalen Harvey. Those are 2 prospects who were expected to, or they did redshirt last season, and guys that could potentially push for playing time this upcoming year after redshirting last season and sitting out. I think those are 2 guys that are names to watch in that defensive end room. D-tackle, Zane Durant is returning. He had a really strong 2024 season. Also, all these guys really did at Penn State. This was a great defense. But he put up 43 tackles, 11 tackles for loss, had 3 sacks at defensive tackle. So that is a big return too, just in terms of pass rush ability as well from that defensive tackle spot. It's kind of been a thing that's been growing in emphasis in football throughout the past 2 or 3 years, especially, is getting a strong pass rush from that defensive tackle position, and Zane Durant will do that. The spot next to him is kind of up for grabs as well. Alonzo Ford Jr. kind of expected to be the main guy there. He's probably the front runner, but he also suffered a long-term injury in November. It was kind of undisclosed what that actual injury was, so unsure if that will affect his availability at all, if he's going to be ready for the start of the season. But Caleb Artis, Xavier Gilliam, those are also some guys that could complete at that defensive tackle spot next to Zane Durant. Linebackers, they have Dom DeLuca, Tony Rojas returning, 2 established starters that have played pretty well. Rojas, he kind of struggled at times last season, just in terms of some of the angles he took, some of the decisions he made probably weren't the best, but he also was dealing with a nagging shoulder injury like all season for the most part, so that could have definitely impacted his play. I'm not sure. I'm give him the benefit of the doubt. Rojas, though, is a guy that his plays that, he stands out, they really pop. His interceptions, he's had a couple of interceptions past season, but when he stands out, he really, really pops on film, is really impressive at that linebacker position. So just looking for more consistency from him. Dom DeLuca, on the other hand, is really consistent. You know what you're going to get from DeLuca. Smart football player, hard-nosed, not the most athletic, but able to do what Penn State needs him to do, and just kind of has that Big Ten linebacker look. Third spot, though, up for grabs. There's 4 or 5 names there. Keon Wiley, Tamir Robinson, Anthony Specca. There's a couple other guys. They're all really in contention for that position. Probably going to rotate in, most likely, and just kind of see who may fill out that spot, or if it's something that you rotate throughout the season. Secondary, they're really deep. Cornerback room is pretty deep. They do need to replace Jalen Kimber. A.J. Harris should lock up one of those starting positions. The other one, again, is going to be up for grabs. Safety, though, they are losing Jalen Reed and Kevin Winston, so both starting safeties are going to be out. Zakee Wheatley, he could probably start. He filled in for Winston last season when Winston was injured, so I think he probably has one starting position there. DeJuan Lane could be another guy that could step up. He was a guy that was supposed to redshirt last year, did not end up redshirting. He ended up having a bigger role than expected, played in most of the games last season. So it could be a guy that actually takes that next step up and starts as a true sophomore. Schedule-wise, Oregon, they have to play Oregon at home. I think that's going to be a tough game, but I do like the fact that it's at home for Penn State. That is a really, really tough place to play. I think it's one of the hardest in the country. It's really loud. It's in the middle of nowhere, and all you hear is 110,000 fans screaming. It's pretty crazy. It's a cool experience. But Oregon, I think the fact that they have that game at home bodes well for them. That's going to be a really crucial one just for Big Ten standings as well as college football playoff standings. They do have to go to Columbus to play Ohio State, which I kind of touched on in that last segment, but that's going to be a really tough matchup. Kind of similar to what I said for Ohio State and Michigan. Until Penn State beats Ohio State, this is going to be a game I'm going to schedule every single season as a game that Penn State will probably lose, but they definitely have the talent. They certainly have the capability to beat Ohio State especially this season. They have Indiana at home. Indiana's, again, a team I think could be better than people expect. I think they take care of business there, though. But, again, this is going to be a team that's going to win 10, 11 games this season. Will be in contention for the Big Ten Championship. Will be in contention for a college football playoff. And I think this season's really kind of do or die for Penn State. Just with Aller coming back, with Katron Allen, Nick Singleton coming back, the guys that are still in that room, I think this could be kind of the last shot for a few years that Penn State has a legitimate chance at a national championship. So we're going to take another break on the show. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about some prospects that I think could have an immediate impact at the next level in the NFL. We'll be back shortly on the GSMC College Football Podcast.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Welcome back to the GSMC College Football Podcast on today, Thursday, April 17th. Just previewed Ohio State as well as Penn State. Going to switch gears a little bit, talk about some guys in this 2025 draft class that I think could really have a potential to make an early impact at the next level. Obviously, my first guy, going to stick with that Penn State flavor, talk about Abdul Carter. Not all these guys are like top 5 picks, but I really want to talk about Abdul Carter. I think he's an absolute stud coming off the edge. He's a guy that's still really learning as a pass rusher. Only spent last season That was his only year as a full-time pass rusher. Previously was an off-ball linebacker and played majority linebacker. So, but this kid has all the tools, intangibles, everything you could want from an edge rusher. I think the thing that impresses me the most is his speed, his closing speed. He is freakishly fast coming off of the edge, just chasing down ball carriers, chasing down quarterbacks. I think that's one of his big things that is really impressive about Abdul Carter, is just the speed, that ability to close quickly, and that's something that will play at the next level. He has next level quickness. And another thing, I think his versatility kind of bodes well to playing early. If he can't play, 3 downs a series every time, he is going to be a guy that at least will come in on 3rd down, will rush the passer, going to be a situational guy for sure. So I think even if he's not playing full-time, probably will have at least 5 sacks this season coming in, just from those situational pass rushes, those 3rd and longs, those obvious passing downs. I think that's going to be where he could really make his mark this season. And whoever drafts him, I think it's probably going to be Cleveland or the Giants. Whoever drafts him, I think if they just let him go and kind of let him off the edge, this is going to be a guy that's going to be really productive. I think both of those situations are good for Abdul Carter. Personally, if he ends up in Cleveland, he's opposite Myles Garrett, who's arguably the best pass rusher in the NFL right now. So that's a guy that would take most of the attention away from him, allow him to kind of expose one-on-one matchups on the edge on that other side opposite of Myles Garrett. And then if he's a guy that ends up in New York with the Giants, they also have Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau, obviously not the same caliber as Myles Garrett, but the presence of both of those guys giving them Abdul Carter would give them a 3rd pass rusher that could really wreak havoc on offenses. I think this is a guy that no matter where he ends up, he's going to be productive right away, going to be impressive to watch. Another guy I'm looking at from the FCS level is going to be Gray Zabel. So North Dakota State guy, 6'6", 305, played left tackle for them. This could be a guy that bumps inside and plays guard at the next level. Obviously, coming from the FCS level, there's always going to be question marks about the level of play, level of competition, if this guy can do it at the same kind of level against a higher caliber of competition. But Gray Zabel came in, had a really, really strong Senior Bowl, kind of showcased his talents throughout that entire week, showed why he was there, showed that he belonged in the 1st round conversation. Probably going to be a late 1st round pick, early 2nd round pick, but this is going to be a guy that will get drafted somewhat early. And I think the other big thing with Gray Zabel that's going to make him really, really good player to watch is just the fact that he can play tackle or guard, and he's probably going to play guard at the next level. Doesn't have the longest arms, so arm length is really big for NFL scouts. Normally that's a big sticking point for tackles. There's a certain threshold that they want their tackles, their arms to be longer than, and Gray Zabel has shorter arms, so he's probably going to bump inside to guard, but honestly that move inside to guard might be better for him to make an early impact. He has really strong footwork. His technique and his pass protection is really strong, really set. And he also just has the power to finish blocks consistently. And I think his skill set, especially if he is starting at guard, this is going to be a guy that could be a really strong starting guard right away, straight out the gate. I think he's probably going to end up at guard, most likely. I think that makes the most sense. But I wouldn't be surprised if a team tries him out at tackle. Currently, he's been mocked to teams like Seattle Seahawks. That was the one I saw most recently, where he could go play guard for them, fill one of those spots, and be a really strong contributor on that offensive line for them. Another guy I'm looking at is Carson Schlesinger, linebacker from UCLA. Now, this kid is a gamer. So he was only a one-year starter at UCLA. He was a former walk-on, but he started the last 10 games of the 2024 season, put up double-digit tackle numbers in 9 of those 10 games. And this is a kid that's got probably one of the strongest motors out of anybody in the draft class. Not super big, but flies into contact, absolutely fearless, legitimate stopping power though too. He's got strength behind his hits. He's able to use his frame, use his body, throw his weight behind that, and he's able to stop ball carriers. So even though he's not super big, does have the hitting ability to stop those guys. Shows absolutely no fear going in at blockers. That's going to be a part of his game that he's going to need to improve, fine-tune, just trying to slip through gaps, identifying where those holes are, and just being able to bend around guys, kind of work through that line of scrimmage to get to the ball carrier. That's going to be something where he does need to improve on. And then he also could use coverage skills. His coverage skills could use a little work. But he's got the range. He has the length. He has just the intelligence, the overall awareness, a football IQ to eventually become a really strong coverage linebacker. But I think this is a guy that his effort, his just passion for football, his ability to play is going to shine through. Probably going to be a day 2 pick, but going to be a guy that's going to play all out for whoever he's lining up for. Another guy I'm looking at safety-wise is Andrew Mabuka from Texas. Was a Clemson transfer, but this is a kid that's pretty much the entire package at safety. Really smart safety, had a couple interceptions this past season, but how he got his interceptions was by identifying route concepts, figuring out what receivers were running, reading the quarterback's eyes, anticipating the throw, undercutting the throw, really intelligent interceptions. It wasn't kind of that the ball just bounced into his hands. It was a play where he was reading the entire play, and that's something that's really difficult. That's a trait that you want to see out of your safeties. And this kid, that he's also got a ton of range at the position, legit 4.4 speed, solid first step just in terms of coming out of that play, where he's going to go, what angle he's going to take. He's really good with all that stuff. And he's another guy that's pretty fearless. He throws his body into ball carriers. He'll go at guys that are 30 pounds heavier than him, consistently challenge them at the point of attack. Scrappy dude. This can be a guy that could be a culture setter for a program, for a team. But the one thing that's really limiting him, he's only 5'11". He's 185 pounds, so thin safety, not a big frame whatsoever. That's one of the big question marks with Andrew Mabuka, is just his frame. Can he hold up at an NFL level? Can his body hold up for him? I think this is a guy, though, that if he's got the right coaching staff that puts him in the right spots, I think he can succeed right away and have a ton of success at the NFL level, especially if he has another safety kind of back there with him. Say he ends up in a spot such as Baltimore with a guy like Kyle Hamilton. I think this could be a guy that can thrive in the right situation. But more so than anyone else on this list, I think Mabuka is a guy that his situation will probably kind of determine whether he has an early impact or not. I think that's something that gets overlooked a lot of times in the NFL, is just kind of what a player's coming into, because it can make it difficult to succeed. It just depends on where they're at. I think, though, Mabuka's probably the guy that has the most question marks, just of can he make that early impact right away. So we're going to take our last break of the show, and when we come back, going to talk a little bit about some of the rule changes the NCAA announced in terms of timeouts, trying to stop fake player injuries. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, but we're going to take our final break on the GSMC College Football Podcast. Welcome back to the GSMC College Football Podcast. We're going to finish our show by talking about some of the new rule changes that the NCAA announced today, came out earlier today. The big one here is going to be penalties for faking injuries. So the way it's written out, if medical personnel enter the field to assess a player after the ball has been spotted for the next play, so if the ball's already been spotted, team's lining up, and medical staff has to come on the field, that player's team will be charged a timeout. Additionally, if the team has no timeouts remaining, a 5-yard delay of game penalty will be enforced. And I really like this rule. I like both of these rules. I think it makes a lot of sense. Faking injuries is something that we've seen really ramp up in the past 2 or 3 years, especially in the SEC. I've seen it so much. Pretty much every team has done it. Ole Miss has really kind of been controversial for using this, and then Lane Kiffin has complained about other teams doing kind of the same thing. So, but this is an issue, I think, across college football right now. And there's way too many stoppages in general, but the fact that guys are laying down to try to stop the clock, to give their teammates a breather, essentially, I don't think that's good for the game. I don't think anyone really wants to see it, and it's really frustrating to see from a fan's point of view as well. So I think I like the one, though, where it says after the ball's been spotted, and if medical personnel comes out. That makes a lot of sense to me. I think especially with some of these fast-paced teams, these fast-paced offenses, you see guys that they're snapping the ball every 15, 20 seconds. So if there's a guy, they get up, the ball's already down, and they're ready to go, and then the play gets stopped. It's killing momentum. It's killing that offense's drive, essentially. And I think we're going to see more crackdown on kind of this injury faking. The issue is, how do you really kind of crack down on it? Because obviously there can be injuries where it doesn't really look like the guy's injured, but he really legitimately is. How are you going to kind of determine that? For the most part, you can kind of see when these guys are just like, hey, I hurt my hamstring or something, and they're really more taking a break. But there are injuries that are kind of a little harder to decipher there. Some of the other rules, though, I think they've changed. So overtime with timeouts, starting with the third overtime, if teams get to that, each team is only going to have one timeout for the remainder of the game. Before, it had been each team was allowed one timeout per overtime period. So pretty much every overtime period, you're having 2 timeouts at least, just because they're going to take their timeouts at some point. I kind of like that. I think if you're already at the third overtime, at that point, whoever wins the game. So I agree that I think they should only have one timeout for the remainder of the game. Also brings a little more gamesmanship, a little more strategy into that kind of overtime period that's a crapshoot at times. Another one that I thought was kind of interesting, so they're changing the terminology for replays. The terms confirmed and stands are being eliminated, so referees are not going to use them at all. They're now only going to use upheld or overturned, I guess to eliminate confusion. I don't know. That one, I don't love it. I guess if you don't understand what confirmed and stands means, it kind of makes sense. I kind of liked the confirmed and stands just because there is a difference between you're able to tell if the call is actually confirmed, and you're able to tell if it's just that was what was called on the field. That's my own personal opinion, but I don't know. That one can kind of... I see why the NCAA would change that, where it might be to eliminate kind of redundancy, but I don't love that one. Some other minor ones they did. So kickoff returns, if you put out a tee, if you make your arms and put them out like you're doing your wingspan, that is now going to be a fair catch signal. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And then they're also bringing the coach-to-player system that they had implemented in the FBS this season. That's going to be implemented in the FCS now as well. So just some of the kind of rule changes. I think the big one, obviously, is going to be those penalties for fake injuries. We're going to see how that kind of works out. I don't know. I think it's a give and take. I do kind of like, though, that when the ball is already spotted, that player's team is going to be charged a timeout. Makes a lot of sense for me. And I like the fact that, they're going to start throwing penalty flags for delay of game, because it is a delay of game. If you're faking an injury, you are delaying the game. You're delaying the clock from going. You're stopping the clock. That's as clear of a delay of game as I could see. And that's something that, other sports kind of have that rule where both sides can delay the game. You don't really see it in football, but I think it's something that makes a lot of sense. So with that, we are going to end our show for today. Thank you so much for tuning into the GSMC College Football Podcast, presented to you by the GSMC Network. Please remember to subscribe to the channel, like the show, follow, and if you want even more sports content, more sports updates, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok for even more content, more updates that you love. Thank you so much, and have a great day.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great. I don't want